Deep beneath the surface, there is a chamber where dust doesn't fall. It rises. You've spent 3 days trapped in a temporal labyrinth with your partner Malachai, trying to solve a riddle written in a language of reversals. But as the artifacts begin to rewrite themselves, you're forced to confront a terrifying question. Are you the brilliant mind solving the puzzle? Or are you just a memory the chamber kept to finish its own work? Welcome to Fable's Adventures. I'm your host, and today's narrative, The Mirror of Felix Whitmore, is a psychological sci-fi for our 16-plus audience. It's a story about the fear of irrelevance and the moment you realize that your best ideas might not even be yours. If you've ever felt like an echo in your own life, this journey is for you. Please subscribe to join the archive. Gravity is playing backward. Let's descend.
The dust rises. That's the first thing you notice when you descend far enough. Not that dust falls, but that it rises. Gravity's playing backwards down here. Or time is. Or perhaps they're the same thing, and I'm simply too tired to work out which. Malachai said something clever about entropy when we first arrived 3 days ago. I wasn't listening properly. I'm rarely listening properly anymore. Felix, Malachai's voice echoes from somewhere near the eastern wall, where the fractures are knitting themselves closed like wounds healing in reverse. The inscriptions on the third artifact, they're fading. Of course they are. I bite the inside of my cheek. It tastes like copper and failure, a flavor I've grown rather familiar with. My mind sprawls across the problem like it always does. A vast, interconnected mess of observations I've collected over decades, each one potentially useful, most of them decidedly not. The 3 artifacts sit on the limestone slab between us, a bronze sphere covered in script that shouldn't exist, a clay tablet with symbols that rearrange themselves when you're not looking directly at it, and a mirror, actual glass, impossibly old, its surface fractured into perhaps 100 pieces. The mirror bothers me most. They're not fading, I say, standing. My knees crack. Everything down here is cold enough to make joints protest. They're being rewritten. The whole chamber is. Every time we solve one of these things, we're pulling it forward in time, but the chamber itself is moving backward. We're caught in the friction. Malachai emerges from the shadows, and even after all these years, there's something steadying about his presence. The way he moves through impossible situations like he trusts, I'll find the answer. It's misplaced trust, mostly. But I've learned to build solutions from misplaced things. What happens when the friction wins, he asks. We get buried with our discoveries. Everything we've found gets sealed away again. We become part of the archive instead of its chroniclers. He doesn't look frightened. He looks the way he always looks, like he's already accepted whatever comes next, and is simply waiting for me to catch up. It infuriates me sometimes, this serenity of his, as if relevance isn't the only thing keeping either of us from dissolving entirely. I move to the bronze sphere first. The script is Sumerian, possibly, or something older wearing Sumerian like a borrowed coat. My fingers trace the patterns, not reading them, not yet, but feeling for the rhythm underneath. There's always a rhythm. Everything is connected to everything else, if you look at the right angles. The tablet describes a process, I murmur, more to myself than to Malachai. Agricultural, I think. Seasonal cycles reversed, spring returning to winter, growth becoming seed becoming nothing. Poetic, Malachai observes. Terrifying, I counter. It's describing the chamber. This place isn't a tomb or a library. It's a mechanism. Someone built this to run backwards. The mirror catches my eye again. In its fractured surface, I can see myself multiplied and distorted. A dozen broken versions of Felix Whitmore, each one slightly different, all of them equally uncertain. I've spent so much of my life being afraid of becoming irrelevant that I've never considered the alternative. What if I was never relevant at all? What if I'm just good at convincing people I'm clever, when really I'm just good at improvising desperately, whilst pretending it's intention? The dust swirls around my ankles, rising. There's a third piece to this, I say. Something we haven't found yet. The sphere and tablet are talking to each other. They're a conversation, a debate. But the mirror isn't responding. It's just reflecting. Malachai crouches beside the fractured glass. What would make a mirror respond? And there it is, the moment when everything accelerates, when apathy shatters into something sharper and more dangerous. The realization arrives like a stone dropped into still water. The mirror isn't an artifact, it's a question. It's asking who's looking at it. We are, I breathe. We're the third piece. The chamber is asking us to complete the mechanism. By doing what? I move to the sphere and press my palm against its surface. The bronze is warm, impossible down here where everything should be cold as death. The inscriptions shift under my touch, rearranging themselves into a configuration I recognize. Not Sumerian, older, a language composed entirely of reflections and reversals. It says, "Choose what dies." The tablet crumbles, just like that. I watch it happen, watch centuries of clay return to dust, watch knowledge compress back into nothingness. The sphere begins to warm beneath my hand, heating towards something like fever. Felix, Malachai reaches for me. Don't. My voice doesn't sound like mine anymore. It sounds like something that's been buried for a very long time and is only now learning how to speak. Don't touch anything. The chamber isn't trying to seal itself. It's trying to choose. The fractures in the mirror multiply, spread, become a lattice of broken lines that seems to extend deeper than glass should allow. And in that fracturing, I see something that makes my breath catch. The reflection of a third person, a shadow behind us both, wearing Malachai's face but wrong, the angles subtly off, the eyes reflecting light that isn't there. There's been 3 of us all along, I whisper. Malachai doesn't turn around. He doesn't need to. I know. The words hang there between us, heavy with the weight of every decision I've made in this chamber. Every moment I thought I was improvising brilliantly, when really I was being guided. My mind, that vast library of details and observations, suddenly catalogs every instance where I attributed my solutions to insight, when they could just as easily have been instruction. Every moment when Malachai's suggestions arrived, just as I was about to make a fatal error. Every time I felt clever for finding an answer that was perhaps already waiting for me to find. You're not real, I say. Neither are you, the Malachai. That isn't Malachai, replies, and his voice is exactly like Malachai's, but carrying harmonics that human vocal cords shouldn't produce. You're a memory of someone the chamber knew. You're an echo it kept to solve its riddle. The dust falls now. Falls like it's supposed to. The real Malachai. And I know he's real because he moves with the exhaustion of someone who's carried me through impossible situations and never once asked for thanks. Reaches out and takes my hand. His grip is warm and solid and present in a way that ghosts never quite manage. I think, he says carefully, that you've solved it. The chamber doesn't collapse. Instead, it begins to reassemble itself in reverse, the fractured mirror knitting itself whole, the crumbled tablet reconstituting, the bronze sphere cooling in my palm. But we're moving upward, ascending through layers of time that were previously sealed, pulling the archive back towards daylight. The third presence doesn't follow. Later, standing in the rain above ground, real rain, falling down like rain should, Malachai asks if I'm going to tell anyone what happened down there. No, I say. Who would believe that I spent 3 days being guided through a temporal labyrinth by a ghost wearing your face? Who would believe any of it? He smiles. The fact that you solved it anyway. I didn't solve anything, I just improvised. Yes, that's rather the point, isn't it? I look at him, really look at him, searching for the wrongness I saw in that fractured mirror. But there's nothing there except exhaustion and faint amusement and something that might be affection, though he's never quite named it, and I've never quite dared ask. The broken glass in the streetlight above us catches the rain, fragments catching light in ways that suggest infinity beneath the fractures. Tomorrow, someone will replace it. The pattern will become whole again. The world will forget there was ever anything broken. But I'll remember. My vast library will keep it all. The dust rising, the artifacts shifting, the weight of being reminded that relevance was never the point. Perhaps being remembered matters less than the lives we help along the way. Perhaps that's enough. I reach out and take Malachai's hand. It's warm and real and present. And for the first time in a very long time, I don't need to solve anything at all. The rain keeps falling.
Felix realized that being a memory didn't make his choices any less real. In the end, it wasn't his brilliance that saved them, but the simple human act of improvising through the dark. Sometimes, the most important part of our story isn't being relevant to history, but being present for the person holding our hand in the rain. I have a question for you. If you found out your greatest achievements were actually guided by a force you didn't understand, would that make them feel less special to you? Or is the improvising the part that matters? Let's discuss in the comments below. If this story of fractured mirrors and rising dust stayed with you, please like and subscribe. For more stories about the mysteries of time, check out the Fables Adventures app. Until next time, stay real.